contained in this petition which I'll be talking to you about. The petition is basically directed at improving the transparency of the election process in the country. As you know, the statesman that our former Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik is, he was not casting any aspersion on the Election Commission, but basically to tell them that there is a need to get more assurance, they need to give more assurance to the people of the state and people of the country at large on the election process itself, the machines involved, the manual processes involved. There are three issues on which we have flagged in the letter petition. The first one is the difference in the total votes polled in a booth and the total votes counted from the same EVM. I'll just repeat. It is the difference in the total votes polled in a particular booth using the EVM and the total number of votes finally counted from the same EVM. Now what we found that the form 17C, which is filled up at the time of voting, is given by the presiding officer at the closure of the polls, and then form 20 is filled up by the returning officer while counting. What we found is, there are some illustrations that we have given here from the data that was already available to the party and to some of their candidates. Data across all the 38,000 odd booths in the state was not available to us. Now what we have found, and is given in this petition, a copy of which will be shared with you in answer, is that in one booth, for example, booth number 57 of 84 Fulbani Scheduled Tribe AC, under Kandhamal PC parliamentary constituency, this difference is 682 in one booth. In booth number 165 and booth number 219 of Kalsara AC under Sundargarh PC, this difference is 660 and 784. I can go on, but you can see it in the next show, we'll share it with you. These are just some of the illustrations based on the data that we had. So in order to make a kind of pan-state analysis, our candidates, in some cases, are representatives of the party, made representations to the returning officers to furnish them copy of the Form 17C Part 1 and 2 because they had not collected it at that time. We have also furnished this information to the Election Commission that we were deprived, we were not furnished the data as yet. That is, Form 17C Part 1 would indicate the number of people who have polled, who have reached the booth for polling, and 17C Part 2 would indicate the number of votes that was counted. This variation raises questions about the integrity of the whole process. How is this possible? Especially when EVMs are used, we expected that these discrepancies would probably lessen or would probably not be there at all compared to the manual process when we do it. But when these discrepancies are as high as 784 out of 600 and 660, you see in a polling booth, the number of people who vote is probably 1,000. Now, if there is such a huge difference, then it raises alarms, and that is what we have done. The discrepancy in the cases at single booth level, if it is aggregated for all the booths in the constituency, our candidates have also applied. It is actually all the more serious if it is not furnished to us. The second issue that we have mentioned in the petition today is relating to the number of people who have voted. You see, Orissa had seen simultaneous elections in 2004, 2009, 2014, 2019, and this year, 2024. We made an analysis of the difference in the votes polled as indicated by the Election Commission from time to time till the closure of the polls, and the number of votes that were finally counted. Earlier, during all these years, this difference used to be maximum of 2%, 0 to 2%. But what we see, this is the first time in the history of Orissa elections, first time in the history of Orissa elections, and perhaps also in the country, that the reported voting percentage at the close of poll on the polling day and the final voting percentage after the end of poll reported by the ECI after 2 days saw a difference ranging from 15% to 30% in 50 assembly constituencies out of 147. In 38 assembly constituencies, this variation was 15 to 20%. In 10 assembly constituencies, this variation was from 20 to 25%. And in two assembly segments, Kantamal and Kyonjhar, the variation was the highest. In Kantamal, it was 28.69%. And in Kyonjhar, it was 30.64%. This is compared to the 5 p.m. on the voting day figure that is reported by the Election Commission. But you know, at 11:45, they also report another figure for the people who probably could have been standing in a queue. So we compared that figure, and that figure, even the difference in the earlier years was about 1%. In these two constituencies, we found this difference to be exceeding 10%. In balance, 97 assembly constituencies, the difference ranges from 3% to 15%. So our question to the Election Commission, for which we requested them to clarify this to us, is that in Kyonjhar AC, from where the present Chief Minister of Orissa, Sri Mohan Charan Maji, was contesting, this difference was 30.64% between 5 p.m. and the counting day. Now, if you take 11:45 p.m. as the cutoff time to take care of the people who are probably standing in the queue to go vote and figures getting reported later, still the difference was 10%. So this, we pleaded to the Election Commission that this requires serious analysis and inquiry as to how this much of discrepancy could arise, particularly when the modes of communication, whether electronic, WhatsApp or telephone, internet, services is actually increasing. The quality of communication is actually improving in the country and not deteriorating. So in the earlier elections, when this difference is to be in the region of 0 to 2%, how could it reach as high as 10%? In case of the constituency of Kyonjhar, where the Honorable President Chief Minister of Orissa, Mr. Mohan Charan Maji, Honorable Chief Minister of Orissa, has won. So these were the two issues, and there was the third issue. The third issue was relating to the number of votes that have been polled in a parliamentary constituency, and the number of votes polled for all its constituent assembly units. This is the advantage. This was an advantage we had for collating data because we were having simultaneous elections. So if there was a parliament election and there were 7 assembly constituencies under it, and the person who is entering the booth is putting his votes in both the EVMs, the process itself would say that there should be no difference between the number of votes. The voting percentage which is intimated by the Election Commission is also 1. But we found, when we compared the figures, that in all the 21 Lok Sabha parliamentary constituencies in Orissa, there was a variance between the total number of votes polled in the parliament constituency and total votes when added together of the assembly constituencies constituent assembly constituencies. Now, just to give you an indication, this variation ranges from 4,056 votes in Dhenkanal PC to 3,521 in Kandhamal PC, 2,701 in Balangir PC. Now, there is in Jajpur parliamentary constituency where we lost by the lowest margin. The difference was about less than 2,000. The difference between the PC and AC votes is 677. Now, we in this entire petition and data analysis, which we presented to the Election Commission, naturally, as you can see, we relied on the data which is publicly available from the ECI website, from the State Electoral Officer's website, and some of the Form 17C Part 1, Part 2, which is available with our candidates. The rest we applied, we did not get, and we hope that the Election Commission of India would give direction to the State Electoral Officer and all the returning officers to furnish this data to us on payment of the requisite fees. The applications has been filed. You would wonder why 6 months, because the applications we had filed 2 months ago. Under the RTI also similar applications were filed in some cases. There also no data was furnished to us. In case we take all this data, which is made available to us for all the booths, a clearer picture pretty much. The entire issue of this bringing out these discrepancies before the Election Commission is to highlight that people of this country, the citizens of this country, the citizens of our state Orissa, have tremendous confidence on the Election Commission for conducting free and fair elections. The idea is that, it should not only be, a statement, but it should actually appear to be being practiced. What we have pointed out are three issues. These differences could be arising either out of machine error, or out of manual error, or out of a process error, or a combination of both, or a combination of all. So we have requested to the Election Commission, without asking us questions, that there is a need to reassure the people of Orissa, reassure the people of the country, that these discrepancies, which we could not understand, which could not be explained by the knowledge that we have about the election process, are not vitiated because of these three factors. And if so, then to clarify these points to us. So today's petition was basically to seek clarification and replies from the Election Commission on these discrepancies which are not explainable and unusual to us, so that we could take a view on the same, number one. And number two, it would also increase the integrity of the process. The electorate would also feel more reassured. Thank you so much for this. I will probably now put this in brief in Oriya. तो EVM मशीन का नहीं है, उसको EVM मशीन लाके कोई रख रहा है, वहाँ पे काउंटिंग में वो goes to a different place, प्रोसेस एक इन्वॉल्व है. तो आइदर मशीन का प्रॉब्लम है या मैनुअली कुछ प्रॉब्लम है, जो फिगर्स हम अपलोड करते हैं, डेटा एंट्री करते हैं, और ये प्रोसेस जो कीपिंग द एंटायर प्रोसेस इन्वॉल्व इन द इलेक्शन प्रोसेस ऑफ काउंटिंग फाइनली गिविंग द रिजल्ट, उसमें कुछ हुआ. हम लोगों को हमने तो इंक्वायरी नहीं किया. तो एज ऑफ नाउ वी आर नॉट सेइंग कि ईवीएम के वजह से ये हुआ है. वी आर नॉट सेइंग दैट.
Sir, do you agree with the Congress's stance? Do you agree with the Congress's stance of going back to the ballot paper?
We have not taken, the party as a whole has not taken a view on this. We will wait for the replies received from the Election Commission to our election petition. If we get more data, as we have also played it before them for the other booths, then we would be very reasonable to know that what is the margin of discrepancy, what is the extent of discrepancy across booths. And then the party would be in a position to take it.
सर मेरे दो सवाल है. सर मेरा पहला सवाल तो ये है कि आपने ईवीएम की तो बात कर दी कि ठीक है, ईवीएम में कहीं ना कुछ तो है. आपको लगता है कि वक्त आ चुका है कि बैलेट पेपर पर वापस लौटा जाए? दूसरा मेरा सवाल ये है कि एक बड़े पत्रकार रूबेन बनर्जी ने एक पुस्तक में लिखा है कि बीके पांडेयन की वजह से बीजेडी का बुरा हाल हुआ, बीजेडी उड़ीसा में बुरी तरीके से हार गई. दोनों सवालों पे आपका कमेंट है.
दूसरा सवाल का उत्तर मैं रखता हूं कि ये जो हमने प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस रखा हुआ है, हमने ये इलेक्शन पिटीशन जो इलेक्शन कमीशन को दिए उसके ऊपर है, फिर उसके ऊपर मैं कोई कमेंट नहीं लूंगा. पहला जो प्रश्न था आपका, मैं फिर भी उसको दोबारा कहना चाहता हूं. हमने नहीं कह रहे हैं कि ईवीएम मशीन के वजह से ही सिर्फ ये डिस्क्रिपेंसी हुआ है. हम फिर रिपीट कर रहा हूं कि खाली ईवीएम मशीन नहीं, उसमें मैनुअल प्रोसेसेस आर आल्सो इन्वॉल्वड, देयर आर सम टेक्निकल प्रोसेसेस आर आल्सो इन्वॉल्वड, there are human processes involved, officers are involved, so many people are involved. So the Election Commission should treat this data as some kind of sample to investigate and inquire if things can be improved. If it is, the improvement is required at the manual level, there's no need of changing the EVM process. If it is required to change, look at the EVM system of counting or the way the machines are programmed. The people who ultimately it is a human being who is involved in the process, who is also noting down these figures. So the Election Commission's replies will finally give us a chance to review and examine the entire process before the party can take a view. हम इस वक्त खाली EVM की वजह से ये हुआ, मैं दोबारा फिर रिपीट कर रहा हूँ, हमारा पिटिशन में भी लिखा हुआ है. हम आप लोगों को भी बताया कि 3 कॉजेस हो सकते हैं. एक है मशीन which is EVM, एक है मैनुअल प्रोसेसेस इन्वॉल्व है, तीसरी है प्रोसेस, और ये कॉम्बिनेशन में भी हो सकते हैं, कहीं पे EVM हो सकता है, कहीं पे हो सकता है. So we would require a clarification from the Election Commission of India. We have asked them to furnish us booth-wise data of 17C Part 1 and 2, which we have applied for. Once we get all this, then we'll make further analysis and maybe in a better position to formulate our views very clearly on either of these three things, being responsible for probably vitiating the election process to some extent.
Dr. Patnaik, एक छोटा सा सवाल ये Dr. Patra is also sitting with you. You are using the word errors. We are not casting aspersions on the election commission. Taking a cautious line. My simple, straightforward question to you is: BJD with the opposition bloc, or is BJD traditionally maintaining equidistant from both sides that it used to do
I
in
can answer
2014 to
that.
21?
Other
It's not-
opposition parties have also approached the EC, raising some concerns about the mismatch in figures about the Maharashtra election. Are you also going to talk to other parties? What is the way forward? Has EC assured you any action will be taken?
I would like all of you to understand and try to appreciate that elections to both Parliament and Assembly were held only in two states in the country, not in Maharashtra, not in Chhattisgarh, not anywhere. Two states, Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. Comparison of figures which you have given between the number of votes cast in the parliamentary constituency and the underlying assembly constituencies is not possible in a state where simultaneous elections are not held.
Next day data is there also, no?
No, but they have not held a parliamentary constituency. They are comparing parliamentary constituency votes of a time which was earlier. In our case, it is simultaneous.
So the data that comes today.
हार जीत का नहीं है, ये मुद्दा बीजू जनता दल भाजपा का नहीं है, ये मुद्दा देश में जो इलेक्टोरल ट्रांसपेरेंसी रहना चाहिए, इंटीग्रिटी रहना चाहिए, उसको स्ट्रेंथन करने का। पहला विषय जो माननीय डॉक्टर पटनायक जी ने कहा, क्या सारे बूथ के डेटा हमारे पास है? नहीं है, हम लोगों ने मांगा है और सीईसी ने अश्योर किया है कि दे गोइंग टू लुक इनटू द मैटर। हमने बार बार पिछले 3-4 महीनों से कह रहे हैं कि हमारे पास जो फॉर्म्स आपने सबमिट करी है उसकी एक कॉपी हमको दीजिए, 70C हमें अवेलेबल नहीं हो रहा, ये एक पहला विषय है। सो अनलेस यू हैव ऑल द डेटा, वी डू नॉट वांट टू गो पॉलिटिकल, दैट्स वन। पॉइंट नंबर 2, इश्यू इज अबाउट बीजू जनता दल एज अ रिस्पॉन्सिबल पार्टी taking up the issue of strengthening the electoral process
And the democracy per se.
absolutely। तो इसलिए माननीय मुख्यमंत्री, हमारे पूर्व मुख्यमंत्री श्री नवीन पटनायक जी के जो उद्देश्य है वो तू मैं करने का नहीं है, जो कि आप देखते हैं विरोधी के साथ है या सत्ता पक्ष के साथ है, अब बीच में खड़े हैं या आगे खड़े हैं। नवीन बाबू इस सबसे बहुत परे है, इस सबसे बहुत ऊपर है, बहुत आगे है। शायद एक ही मुख्यमंत्री थे कि जब स्वेरिंग इन हुआ तो ऐसे ही चल के गए जैसे कि वो खुद मुख्यमंत्री आज भी है और आज भी हृदय में है। तो इसीलिए इज अबाउट पार्टी पॉलिटिक्स, इट्स अबाउट द बेसिक टेनेट्स ऑफ ऑपोजिशन वर्सेस रूलिंग। यहाँ पे सवाल ये आता है कि अगर गलती है तो गलती कहाँ है, ये निष्पक्षता के साथ इलेक्शन कमीशन को स्पष्ट करना चाहिए। ये आज हम आए ये नहीं है, आज शुरुआत है। हम आशा करते हैं इलेक्शन कमीशन, सीईसी, उनके ईसीज इस पर कार्रवाई करेंगे। दोबारा हमें बुलाएंगे, उन्होंने खुद कहा है, और हम आशा ये करते हैं कि दोबारा जब बुलाएंगे उनके पास सवालों के उत्तर होंगे और उन उत्तरों के साथ क्या हम संतुष्ट होंगे, अब फिर आपके पास आएंगे। ये मुद्दा केवल एक चुनाव का नहीं है, ये मुद्दा देश की जो इलेक्टोरल प्रोसेस है, जो इलेक्टोरल क्रेडिबिलिटी है, इलेक्टोरल इंटीग्रिटी है, डेमोक्रेटिक फैब्रिक है, उसको मजबूत करने का है। ये एक दिन, 1 साल, 2 साल का नहीं है, ये चलेगा जब तक कि इलेक्टोरल प्रोसेस भारतवर्ष का और मजबूत नहीं हो जाता और सारे सिटीजन अश्योर नहीं होते हैं कि जो सवाल हमने उठाए उसके उचित जवाब सीईसी नहीं देती।
गणतंत्र
खतरे में है। चुनाव प्रोसेस के ऊपर अगर सवाल उठाए जा रहे हैं तो गणतंत्र खतरे में है।
हम उत्तर चाह रहे हैं, जिस दिन उत्तर मिलेगा और हमें उचित उत्तर नहीं मिलेगा तो स्वाभाविक तौर से ये मुद्दा भी आएगा। बट अगर आज ये मुद्दा उठा देते हैं तो सीईसी के साथ बैठने का कोई तात्पर्य ही नहीं बनता।
सर कुछ और अमेंडमेंट भी किए गए हैं इलेक्शन रूल्स में अभी।
एक मिनट, आप जो कह रहे थे ना गणतंत्र में खतरा, आइडिया इज दैट गणतंत्र के ऊपर खतरा नहीं है, लेकिन improvement in democratic process is always possible. And what we are doing is to bring about that incremental change in the electoral process, and that is what our leader, party president, honorable former Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik has been trying. And therefore, here in this process, it is an exercise which we have done, which probably the Election Commission of India, for all you know, should have done it on their own. We have done it on their behalf. And to your question relating to, Form 17C Part 2, उनको पास तो मिलना चाहिए था। आप देखिए, ये Conduct of Election Rules 1961 का Rule 93(2) आप देखेंगे, तो उसमें लिखा रहता है कि copies thereof shall be furnished to anyone from the public. आप कहते हैं ना, आपका कैंडिडेट्स के पास, एजेंट के पास रहना चाहिए। जहां पे एक इंडिपेंडेंट कैंडिडेट, उसके पास वो एजेंट देना तो बाध्यतामूलक नहीं है, वो एजेंट नहीं दिया है, इसका मतलब इलेक्शन प्रोसेस को ऊपर उसका ट्रस्ट नहीं रहेगा क्या? रहना चाहिए। तो आवर आइडिया इज द पार्टीज आइडिया, ऑनरेबल पार्टी प्रेसिडेंट्स आइडिया, एज माननीय सस्मित जी बताया रहे थे, कि डेमोक्रेटिक प्रोसेस शुड इंप्रूव एंड एवरीवन शुड वर्क फॉर इट। This is across political parties. We have written that all the political parties are stakeholders in making this democratic process more transparent and therefore to be owned by the people. And this is a step in that direction.
So these rules that you quoted, some changes have been made to those rules also just last week. Have you been through that and have you discussed how does BJD take this?
No, but I think
You mentioned it.
yeah.
You see, the election commission mentioned that they have made some changes. But ours was a case before the change.
And moreover, that change has come in the video footages. This rule which I am mentioning is relating to paper documents like 17C Part 1, 17C Part 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.